I told my half-sister I can't have a relationship with her. My mind went somewhere so twisted. I was thinking like romantic relationship. Like I told her I can't date her. This story came January 20th, 2026. When I, 21 female, was very little, my dad had an affair with a woman called Elizabeth, which resulted in my half-sister, Jalen, 20 female. I also have 3 older siblings, Morgan, 29 female, Ruth, 28 female, and Ashton, 26 male, that don't really have a relationship with our dad since they were old enough to understand and they remember a life with our parents. When the divorce was finalized, my dad, Elizabeth, and Jalen moved to another nearby town 30 minutes away. So we weren't exactly close to the point of attending the same elementary or high school, but we saw each other quite often because we had to go every weekend to our dad's house. That really sucked because especially when my siblings and I got older, we couldn't really make plans on the weekends with our friends since we'd be gone Friday evening until Sunday time afternoon. Whenever me or my siblings had events, birthdays, competitions on the weekends, we would have to go to our dad's home, get ready there, and then he would drive us, and so that my stepsister felt included. The real issue started when my siblings started turning 18 and decided not to come anymore since legally my dad couldn't force them. So from 14 to 18, I still had to go, but alone. To give my dad some credit, and since I was starting to act out for not being able to make my own plans with my friends on the weekends, he allowed me to stay at my mom's 2 weekends a month. Being there sucked all the joy out of me because I was alone facing Jalen and Elizabeth. My dad got home around 7 p.m. and Elizabeth was a stay-at-home mom. I dreaded listening to them make digs at my mom and my sisters for their appearances, which I shot down every time, but they would just keep going, or talking my ear off about my mom and siblings being too old to keep up with me, whatever that means. I guess since Jalen and I were closer in age than to my siblings, they expected that the alone time they had with me would be enough to turn me against my mom and my siblings, giving me gifts and trying to get us to bond, which gave the opposite result and made me resent them even more. That is so toxic to be around that energy all the time. Once I turned 18, I had a heart-to-heart with my dad and I told him I wasn't going to keep visiting if his wife and daughter were here because I felt trapped with people who hated my mother and would make vile comments about her when my mom has never been anything but graceful towards them and has always told us to give Jalen a chance since we were her only siblings that she would never have. Elizabeth had to get her uterus removed due to a tumor a few years after having Jalen. My siblings sometimes have dinner at my dad's, but they decreased over time because Elizabeth demanded to come as well. My siblings refused since they wanted alone time with dad, and since he was stuck between a rock and a hard place, those dinners very rarely occurred. Every graduation or event became very headache-inducing because Elizabeth always wanted to upstage my mom and make backhanded comments, and even tried to name herself Mother of the Bride at Morgan's wedding. I feel like dad needs to have a chat with his new wife. Along with some other stuff that prompted her to be escorted outside by my uncles. Ruth didn't even invite her to her wedding, which in return made our father only attend the ceremony and not the reception since she threatened him with divorce. The only perspective I'm having right now is why is dad letting this woman affect the relationship with his kids? Isn't the relationship with his children more important? Like if that threaten me with divorce, that's fine. This is my child. And if I want to be there on the most special day of their life, I'm gonna be. I don't like that. Last year at Ashton's graduation, he didn't even attend because the day before he was supposed to arrive, Jalen tried to commit, and was admitted to the hospital. To say things have been tense would be an understatement. Oh, that's not good. The last time I spoke to her was a few days after her admission when I went to check on her, but couldn't really see her much because her mother accused me of being the reason her daughter was in that state, because I never let her in my heart and that I should have been the one in the hospital bed. Who is this woman? I responded back at her and she tried to slap me, but I managed to avoid it and I drove back home without even talking to my dad. The universe knows not to give me that type of person who tries to slap me.
Catch me outside, how about that?
I would lose it. A few weeks ago, my grandma on my dad's side passed away. My siblings and I didn't really have a relationship with her because she assaulted my mom when she was pregnant with Ashton and then moved away. So we only saw her maybe once every 2 or 3 years. She was also never very welcoming or loving since she always said my mom cheated and all of us were affair babies, even though we were proven to be his. This doesn't apply to Jalen since she is a carbon copy of her when she was younger, so my grandma really favored her over any of her other grandkids. When we attended the funeral, it was the first time that we all saw each other in a very long time, but we mostly kept cordial for the occasion. The problem came when Jalen approached me and sobbed in my arms because last year she realized just how depressed and miserable it made her to have been denied a relationship with her siblings, that she realized how wrong she and her mother had treated us and wanted to make amends and start fresh with us. I mean, in the very least, I'm happy she's taking accountability. Not that I think the mother will do the same. She also said that our grandmother's passing had fully broken her because we had our marital grandparents and lots of cousins, but she only had us. My dad is an only child whose father passed when he was a kid, and Elizabeth is also an only child too. I held her hands and I told her that I understood how bad she must have felt in that moment and that I was sorry that she was in a situation like that because it wasn't her fault for being born from an affair, but that I personally could not give her the relationship she craved because I struggled to see her as anything more than the product of the affair my dad had, not family, even less a sibling. Oh, gosh, that's so tricky. It isn't her fault that she's a child of affair. I'm sure she doesn't want to be. I don't really how'd your parents meet? Oh, well, my dad was actually married when he met my mom, and that's not a fun situation. I said that I wish things had been different and that our parents had made better choices, but the truth is, for the moment, I can't bring myself to be part of her life or have her be a part of mine. She looked at me like I had just stabbed her, and I went away because at that moment, I felt like crying, but I couldn't keep that in my chest anymore. I went to my car and I went home. I haven't spoken to my dad in person since that day, and I don't know if Jalen told him what happened, but I have been so anxious ever since. My mom told me I was very harsh, and I could have phrased it better if that's how I really felt because she's going through so much at the moment. Most of my friends agree with me saying that she needs to stop demanding a relationship and better herself instead of just crying. But one of them told me I was being very cruel because if her stepsister ever said the things I said, she would crash out. I'm really lost and would appreciate some insight from people who have experienced something similar. I don't even know if I'm justified in being this resentment because, as I said, I haven't really known a life with my parents together. But I'm just trying to see the perspective of how do you have a relationship with your dad, who was the adult who made the active decision to betray your mom and the family and have the affair. She's just the product. She was put here under those circumstances. Zero control. Absolutely nothing. I don't agree with her talking smack and all that. That was wrong. And you had no reason to be friends with her at that point if all she's gonna do is talk badly about your mom and your siblings. Totally understand that. But just because she's the kid out of affair, but you have a relationship with your dad. I feel like my anger would be towards my dad over the child. Is all I'm trying to come to terms with. But you guys let me know. Perspectives. Let's all chat about it. Let's check out what some people of Reddit are saying. Someone commented and said, the opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. While she may have fought and struggled with you, that still means you had a relationship, which is more than she probably had with either of your siblings. It's not uncommon for people to prefer even adversary relationships to absolute solitude. OP responded and said, yeah, maybe that's why. I never thought of that. I just thought she saw me as weaker. My siblings definitely don't care about her now. When we were younger, they mostly ignored her and comforted me when we would argue. Now that they're older and have a life outside of the family, maybe she thinks she has no chance at ever getting to know them organically without me? I'm really confused. For sure. She spent the most time with you growing up. You are her way in to the other siblings is probably how she is seeing it. Next comment. Not the a-hole, and your mom is a saint and a better woman than I'll ever be because damn, if I didn't raise holy hell and danced on my ex-mother-in-law's grave while toasting champagne if she did that to me. I mean, yes, mom does sound like an angel for being so cordial and respectful during all of this. OP responded and said, I didn't add this because I didn't think it was relevant, but my mom was actually the one to tell us that our grandma passed away. My dad called her and said he had enough to deal with having told Jalen. This is what she had to say when someone commented about her mother and said that their mom should have protected her and her siblings better from their father and his wife. OP said this. Yeah, I wish my mom had a spine and chewed my father out for allowing that crap, but she's always said that she's non-confrontational and to let things just take its course, which I imagine was to just let them deal with the consequences later, but said course also impacted my ability to deal with crappy people in my life. My oldest sister was far more effective in dealing with that than my mom when she shouldn't have, because if every adult failed the children, they failed her the most. Oftentimes we see that where the oldest sibling kind of takes a parental role in one way or another. They're the protective ones of all the other siblings. My oldest sister, bless her, I tell her all the time. Gilmore Girls, if you've seen it, my oldest sister is the Lorelai to my Rory, like 100%. We have an update, but first I'm gonna take a sip of water, and you should too. It's hydration station. Cheers. Oh, damn. All right, I'm gonna break my camera in the meantime. Hi guys, just popping in here. If you guys happened to watch that vlog, I think a month or two ago, of when I did that photo shoot, well, guess what? The digital magazine is officially out today. So I'm gonna link it in the description below if you wanna see it. I'm also gonna be posting more of the photos over on Instagram from the entire shoot. Lila, are you okay? So if you guys wanna check that out, I'm gonna link it down below. And yeah, okay. Bye. My life has been absolute mayhem since I got back from LA. I had 4 big auditions come in just this weekend alone, and I'm living out of an unpacked suitcase. You know, sometimes it is what it is. I have so much laundry to do. My house is a friggin' disaster, but we'll get around to it. Just give me some time. All right, so we have the next update, which came a little over a month later, very recently, February 25th, 2026. Excuse me. Morgan called me the next day after I posted this and didn't even ease into it. She just went ahead asking what exactly I told Jalen, because people were telling her different things. And so I told her the truth, and that I can't give her the relationship that she wants, and that I don't see her as a sister. Then she started on how sometimes you don't have to say everything exactly as you feel it, and that there are ways to say things, especially when someone is not doing okay mentally, and that I wasn't particularly new to dealing with mental health problems. And that really irritated me, because when were we ever given softness growing up? I said nobody cared that we were being dragged there every weekend, listening to Elizabeth make vile comments about mom, having to act polite while being insulted to our faces. Then she snapped back that I have no idea how much crap she had to deal with before she even turned 10, trying to shield the rest of us that not everything happened in front of me, and that I don't even know the half of it. And then it just spiraled into a screaming match, because pulling out old stuff just makes you feel 13 again for some reason. She even threatened to call Ruth to back her up in what she was saying, to prove that I have no reason to be acting like a martyr, because according to her, I had the easy part, having the 3 of them like hawks around me. I honestly don't know how she could be so wrong, considering I spent my late adolescence crying every single weekend that I had to go there, and begging them to come with me because I couldn't handle it anymore. Oh, this is so tricky. I can relate to this in so many ways. About, I had divorced parents. I mean, have divorced parents, but growing up, it was like that. We had their schedule. There were times I didn't want to go to, certain houses and this, and my siblings were older, and you can grow up in the same house as the siblings, the same parents, same houses, but have such different experiences. And I've learned that as I got older. I want to think she just said it because she was angry. I know she carries a lot of resentment because she had to do it alone, because even though Ruth is only 1 year younger, she was always pretty much on the more innocent side and just dealt with everything more quietly, while Morgan was the one who spoke up every single time. I know both of them are still pretty angry, even if they hide it better now that they have like husbands and houses and everything. Talking to my dad was way worse. I went to his job to pick him up and talk on the way to his home because I knew his wife would be there, and that was the only way that I could talk to him alone, and because I wanted to clear up what happened at the funeral, and I needed to say everything to his face. I asked him why he never shut Elizabeth down when she talked badly about mom or us, like I said earlier, and why he never drew hard boundaries with them like he did with us. Why keeping the peace always meant that we were the ones who were adjusting, and why even after all of their kids said they wouldn't see him if his wife was there, it didn't click for him that maybe his wife was really the problem. He did the whole forehead rub and saying he was so tired of everything and everyone, and that he was trying to maintain stability, that Jalen didn't deserve to grow up feeling unwanted, and that you're not gonna believe this, Elizabeth is his wife and he will always be by her side even when she's wrong, and would never let anything come in between them. I asked, how can you love someone who has destroyed every single relationship in your life because you refused to put her in her place? And he said, I didn't know anything about her and I couldn't judge her because everyone has their little things. At that moment, I wanted to swerve and crash the car because what do you even mean? That honestly messed with my head more than anything else he has ever said, because suddenly it's not a mistake he made years ago that he can't fix now. It is a present day choice that he isn't embarrassed to continue making, and it honestly repulsed me. When I was little, I was so sad because I thought my dad was being abused by this woman because he couldn't possibly be okay with her doing all of that stuff. And surely he was planning on divorcing her at any moment. Come to find out, he is completely fine with this and isn't bothered by the fact that all of his kids completely hate him. I also talked with my mom because, as many of you said, her passiveness when it came to what we endured was not okay, and she also needed to be held accountable. I asked why she didn't push harder legally, why she didn't take dad and Elizabeth to court when lines were crossed and let us handle comments like that as kids. She said she didn't want our childhood to turn into a constant legal warfare, and that she thought dignity and calm would protect us more than dragging everything through court. But I said dignity doesn't stop people from humiliating you, and that she just acted cowardly because she didn't want to be seen as the bitter ex-wife. She just didn't respond after that and went into her room. I don't know if it was fair to say, but that is just how I feel after being villainized by my own mother for responding to abuse. After that, it was mostly peaceful for about a week and a half, but Jalen asked me to meet a few days later, and for some reason, I agreed to meet in the parking lot of the train station in my town because honestly, I don't want to set foot on hers anymore. It was just so awkward at first because we sat on one of those metal benches where everyone just kind of passes by you and listens. It was so public and exposed, I kind of wanted to just leave. Yeah, maybe pick somewhere a little quieter. She said she's in therapy now and that she realizes her mom filled her head with stuff about us blaming her for existing, that she spent years thinking that if she tried harder to become better than my siblings, I would eventually choose her. I told her I never wanted or had the intent of choosing anyone, that I was just trying to survive in that house alone for 4 years while my siblings were old enough to stop going. And yes, I know they had their own versions of hell, but I was physically there all by myself dealing with Elizabeth, not only in person, but also on the phone on the weekdays because I wasn't allowed to block either of them, or I would be made to come every weekend, not just every other weekend. She told me I've always treated her like the symbol of the affair instead of a person, and I said this isn't about the affair, it's about how I was treated, about the comments, and about trying to alienate and isolate me from my family. But if I'm completely honest, the comments on my previous post and what she said made me reflect on how much of my stance was about the principle of the infidelity and how much is about the actual behavior. Because on the worst days, my mind always came back to her being born from the affair that destroyed my family, and that made me even angrier than before. Yes, but your father did the affair that destroyed your family. The conversation started getting heavy because I had never seen her this vulnerable, and honestly, it made me extremely uncomfortable because she was constantly alternating between crying, shaking, or getting angry. She also said I had the luxury of standing on moral high ground because I wasn't the one labeled the affair baby my entire life, and that I had other family and she didn't. But I said I'm not the one responsible for giving her the family her own parents created from a broken one, and that her own actions ensured none of us wanted to have a relationship with her as adults. After that, she just asked if there's genuinely nothing in me that wants to try. And I said I don't want to force anything just to make everyone else comfortable, and that she should focus on sorting things out with her mom and not me. Also, I got the impression she was using a lot of therapy speech on me because she kept saying how hating her made me feel that I'm the one in control so that I could keep punishing her forever, but nothing would undo what happened. After that, we just said goodbye because it was getting late, and honestly, we were just going in circles. A few days later, Ashton sent me a screenshot of a chat request from Jalen saying that she is sorry for everything and that she hopes he would be open to maybe grab a coffee someday and talk about everything. He just said, "Look at this." And when I asked him if he was going to respond, he said, "I don't know, I'll think about it." Which kind of makes me angry because if he's open to reconciliation, I don't know where that leaves me with the rest of them. I also talked to Ruth about everything. She is the most detached one, but that's just her personality. She just said life is too short to make this our defining trait, and that for so many years it looked like this was the only thing that kept us close. Not shared interest, just circling each other like wounded animals. She also said that both me and Jalen were acting from ego and were so young to make this our hill to die on. I told her about the message from Jalen to Ashton, and I asked her if she would be open to communication one day. And she said, and I quote, "I don't know what I'm gonna have for dinner today. What makes you think I'm gonna know what I'm gonna do tomorrow? Maybe if the wind changes." Then there's Will, Morgan's husband, who I've known since I was like 6 and honestly feels like a brother to me. I ended up talking to him in my car because I wanted to show him how I've decorated it because it was originally his old car that both of them gave me as a present, on Christmas since they were getting a new one. He said he didn't want to get involved because he's technically an in-law and he has seen through the years, but from his perspective, this says more about me than about Jalen. That he loves me very much and needs me to let go because it feels like secondhand anger. That I stopped having contact almost 4 years ago and it still manages to upset me. I just feel like maybe you should go to therapy and heal from everything. Everything with Jalen, Elizabeth, your dad, everything, your mom, everything from your childhood. I swear, I feel everyone should heal from their childhood if they need it, you know? Your childhood and upbringing affects you so much in adulthood, and I never thought that. Obviously, growing up, I would have no idea, but it's everything. It really is. That's exactly what shapes you into like who you are in different ways, even if you don't want it to. So you got to work through that. He's been around since the beginning and he's watched Morgan fall apart and put herself back together. He's heard things that I probably don't even know about. That set me off because yes, Morgan absolutely suffered, but at the end of the day, she stopped going right after she turned 18 and I was there until it was my turn. He said that pain wasn't a competition and then we just went back inside and continued like nothing happened because Morgan was already on edge about something at work and both of us knew that that would set her off. So right now, no one is really taking sides. We're just exhausted and want to pretend like nothing happened. And I get it. They're older and they have far more complicated lives than I do, but that doesn't exempt them from being just as involved as I am. I just know for the moment, I'm going to try and focus on things and the people I love and stop worrying about the past. Gosh, there is so much in here. All I can say is therapy. Truly, I feel like I'd say a million things about this, but therapy, highly recommend, or just anything, I don't know. If you don't feel comfortable with therapy, I don't know. You really gotta talk to someone, and perspective and healing is so important. Let me know your thoughts out there. I feel like a lot of people might relate to this in more than one way, as the parent, as the child, as an affair baby, every different part of the story. So let me know. I'll see you in the comments. Stay classy out there, stay sassy. Bye.